Okay, let's talk about AI. It's an absolute game changer, right? But with all that incredible power comes a whole new set of risks. And I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill computer bugs. Today, we're going to dig into how we can actually understand, categorize, and, ultimately control the unique dangers that AI brings to the table. It's all about moving from potential chaos to having some real structured control. And just so you know where all this great info is coming from, this entire explainer is drawn right from Chapter 3 of a really fantastic tutorial. It's all about developing an AI governance program put together by Virtualization Options LLC. So let's dive into their framework.
So this gets to the heart of it, right? Why is it that even the smartest, most sophisticated AI systems out there, the ones that seem almost magical, why do they still make these really dangerous mistakes?
Well, the reason is pretty simple, but it's also profound. AI doesn't just have the same old problems we're used to with traditional software. It brings a whole new class of risks to the party. But, and this is the important part, it's not all doom and gloom. These risks aren't unmanageable. If you have a structured approach, a really clear framework, you can bring order to that chaos. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. Look, on one side, you've got your traditional IT risks. Think system crashes, data loss, stuff that's often predictable or at least contained. But AI risks? That's a whole different ballgame. We're talking about things like subtle biases that creep into decisions, or a model's performance just slowly degrading over time, what they call model drift, and you might not even notice until it's way too late. And this is why this is such a big deal. An AI failure isn't just some technical glitch that you can patch and forget about. No way. It can literally become a front-page disaster that tanks your brand's reputation for years. It can land you in serious legal hot water or just completely throw a wrench in your business operations. I mean, the stakes are just incredibly high.
Okay, so to get a handle on all this, we can't just lump AI risk into one big scary bucket. That doesn't help anyone. We've got to break it down, and the source material does a brilliant job of this, organizing it into 6 distinct categories. You can think of them as the 6 faces of AI danger. Let's walk through each one.
First up, and this is a huge one, is bias and fairness. Look, an AI is only as good as the data you feed it. And if that data reflects historical biases, which, let's be honest, most of it does, then the AI is going to learn and maybe even amplify those biases. You can see how this gets super dangerous in high-stakes stuff like hiring or loan applications. Next on the list, privacy and data protection. AI models are just data hungry. They need massive amounts of information to work well, and that right there creates a massive risk. If that data isn't handled perfectly, you're looking at potentially devastating privacy breaches, huge fines, and a total loss of trust from your customers. It's a big deal. Third is security and adversarial risk. And this is way more than just traditional hacking. We're talking about some really clever attacks here. Things like data poisoning, where someone secretly feeds bad data to an AI to mess with its output, or prompt injection, where a user writes a special kind of message to trick the system into breaking its own safety rules. Pretty wild stuff. Then you've got the famous black box problem. This falls under transparency and explainability risk. The thing is, many of these advanced AI systems are so incredibly complex that even the folks who built them can't fully explain why it made a certain decision. And if you can't explain a decision, how can you trust it, right? How can you possibly fix it if it goes wrong? Number 5 is all about reliability and safety. This is basically about an AI just not working the way you expect it to. Maybe it fails on some weird edge case you didn't think of, or its performance gets worse over time as the real world changes. That's that model drift idea again. And you can imagine in things like medicine or self-driving cars, this is a massive, massive concern. And finally, we have the one risk that kind of makes all the others worse: accountability and governance risk. This is what happens when nobody's really in charge. If an AI system screws up, who's responsible? Whose job is it to fix it? Without that clear ownership and oversight, you just can't respond to problems or learn from your mistakes. Okay, wow, that was a lot of risk, I know. But hang on, this isn't about being scared of AI. It's about being smart. So now we're going to shift gears from the problem to the solution. Let's look at the framework that actually helps bring some control and order to all this complexity. So the key here is a structured process, and this 5-step framework is just beautifully logical. First, you identify the context. What's the AI for? Who's it going to affect? Step 2, you assess the risks using those 6 categories we just talked about. Third, based on that, you classify the system's risk level. That classification then helps you in step 4 to define the right controls to put in place. And finally, and this is so important, you review periodically. This is not a set it and forget it kind of deal. And this quote just nails that last point perfectly. Risk classification is not static. An AI system changes, the data changes, the rules and regulations change. What was a low-risk system yesterday could easily become a high-risk one tomorrow. This has to be a living, breathing process. So what's the point of all that? Well, once you've assessed a system, the next step is to put it in a bucket, so to speak. This classification step is what turns the abstract idea of risk into real, concrete action. This table makes it super clear. You can see the tiers right there. Down at the bottom, you've got minimal risk systems. Think spam filters. You don't need a ton of governance for that. But as you climb up to medium risk, like a fraud detection system, or especially high risk, like an AI that helps decide who gets hired, well, the need for oversight gets way, way bigger. And what's really important is that there's a category at the very top for unacceptable risk. These are the systems that an organization just decides are too dangerous or unethical to even touch.
Okay, so how does this all come together in the real world? This framework isn't just some academic exercise. It's a practical guide for actually taking on the responsibility of using AI safely.
And to make this really concrete, teams use a set of key questions during the assessment. Just look at these. They're not just technical, are they? They force you to think about the human side of things. Who is affected? How big is that impact? Can we undo the AI's decision if it's wrong? Asking these questions one by one is how you turn a big idea into a practical safety check.
You know, the ultimate goal here isn't to wrap everything in red tape and slow down innovation. It's actually the opposite. It's about being smart and proportional. It's about focusing your time, your money, your brain power on the highest risk systems where it really matters, and letting the lower risk projects move forward without a lot of hassle.
So let's end with this thought. After seeing this framework, I want you to ask yourself, what system in your world is making a critical decision or impacting people? Which one of your systems is a high-risk AI that maybe you just don't even know it yet? Answering that question, that's the very first step to moving from chaos to control.